Hello IBC. Our devotion for today is taken from Galatians chapter 3. And the book of Galatians was written by Apostle Paul to counter the false teachers who were trying to undermine the central doctrine of justification by faith. So they spread their dangerous teaching that Gentiles must submit to the Mosaic law before they could become Christians. So the first 5 verses of Galatians chapter 3, Apostle Paul asked a series of questions that are meant to challenge the believers in Galatia to think through that justification is by faith and not by following the works of the law. So I remember when I was growing up, when I did something wrong, and I hate when people confronted me with questions. People will tell me, Lloyd, what do you think you're doing? Or what were you thinking? Why? Because the reality is, we don't like questions. Especially when we're being confronted. Because we tend to get defensive because we know that we are wrong. And Apostle Paul, he asked a series of questions, 6 questions in 5 verses in Galatians chapter 3. So the first question is this. He said, who has bewitched you that you should not obey the truth? And secondly, he said, did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? Third, he said, are you so foolish? Fourth, having begun in the Spirit, are you now being made perfect by the flesh? Fifth, have you suffered so many things in vain, if indeed it was in vain? And lastly, he who supplies the Spirit to you and works miracles among you, does he do it by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? So Paul is asking these questions again to challenge them so that they can go back and understand that it is only by faith that we can be saved. In the Philippines every year, during Holy Week, you can see hundreds of people walk barefooted about 56 miles. As they repeatedly strike their backs, you can see blood all over their backs and feet. And some people, they even nail themselves on the cross because they believe that their sacrifice would grant salvation for their sins. Paul is telling us it is not by the works of the law. It is not because you are good. It is not because you're a member of churches here in Singapore. It is not because you are baptized. It's not because you're attending any religious activities here in IBC. But Paul was telling us it is by faith in Christ alone. And I believe that's why in Galatians 2:16, Paul said, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith in Jesus Christ. Even we have believed in Christ Jesus, that we might be justified by faith in Christ and not by the works of the law. The last verse it says, but for by the works of the law, no flesh shall be justified. And it is clear that Paul wrote this letter to defend justification by faith. Even in the book of Ephesians 2:8 and 9, it says, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. Even when Christ, when he was hanging on the cross, in John chapter 19, verse 28 to 30, Christ said, Tetelestai, it is finished. The sacrifice is accomplished. It is sufficient, and we don't need to add anything because Christ's death is sufficient for our salvation. So IBC, may the Lord bless you and keep you.